Yes.
I'd like to call to order the work session for January 28th. As I look around the table, we're all here this evening. Thank you for attending. Agendas for items for discussion. We'll start out with the first one, 3.1. We have a new system now. You know, it'll be numbers, no letters. So want to get you used to that. Receive an update for the current and upcoming projects at Veneta Business Park. Regis Reed, Senior Project Engineer, to present. Regis?
Thank you, Mayor Lord, member of councilors. It's a privilege to be here this evening to bring you up to date on where we are since we purchased the Veneta complex. First, let's start with a little bit of background on it for those that weren't on board and any of the viewing public. The council approved and the city purchased the Veneta complex, 5 buildings, one of which we're sitting in this evening, in September of 2012. The current tenants at the time were Franklin Parish University in a temporary space, Cumming, Cancer Treatment Centers of America, the City of Goodyear, and we had some proposed tenants of the Maricopa County Library District. Since the purchase, we have retained DFDG, Dick Fritchie Design Group, to design the library, and we are currently working through the process now, and I'll update you more on that a little later in the slideshow. The library is slated to open in Veneta in October of 2013. The Veneta complex also is to accommodate future space needs for public safety, the 911 Communication Center, which we've had a groundbreaking for. The CTCA, since the purchase, has expressed interest in moving out and relocating to a larger facility. Currently, they have about 30 people working in that facility in their IT division. That's what's housed there. And with the purchase of a much larger space, it'll accommodate up to 100 people in their IT division. They're expecting that pretty quickly.
Goodyear.
I'm sorry? In Goodyear, yes, in Goodyear.
I just wanted you to add that.
Absolutely, in Goodyear. Absolutely. This opened up some exciting opportunities for us, actually, as we move forward with our planned space. Of course, we need to identify the locations for the library, the fire administration expansion, police department expansion, and future expansion space that the city could use or other entities here. In doing so, staff has created 4 options, and those options were reviewed by internal stakeholders, the police, fire department, parks and recreation, library district. We did that in the week of October 29th. We decided on one of the options being the one before you, and in making that decision, things like building size, cost of remodel, future expansion, those type of items were taken into consideration in doing this and putting this together. The one you see here, Building A, allows for a future expansion of 6,637 square feet. We estimate that construction and design cost for that expansion space to be $365,000. And if you look at the diagram there, it's the pale yellow to the left of the screen are identified as future expansion. With the moving on of CTCA into a larger space here in Goodyear, it opened up an opportunity to provide the library with a much larger space as they expressed interest and council expressed interest in having a nice larger library. We're able to get them in Building C into about 8,000 square feet and still retain 1,650 square feet of programmable space that they can use for story time and things like that, but also can be shared and used by the city, other city functions, and it's a good sized space. Just to give you a little relationship, 117 in our current complex over there at IOB is about 1,300 square feet. So this room will be about 350 square feet bigger than that room. The construction cost for this will be all of this will be borne by the library impact fees, and it's about $654,750 are estimated at this time as construction and design fees. That leaves us in our budget $350,000 for FF&E, books, collections, things like that.
And just to review the public, we needed to use those or lose them, right? So, City Manager, would you just, I just want to remind people that might be listening tonight the urgency of using these funds.
Correct, Mayor. When development fees and with the latest in state statute changes, we are required to expense those funds. So you're absolutely correct. Varying times as much as late as 2020, but also to develop a library, there are a lot of restrictions now as well.
Thank you. Go ahead, Regis.
And then, of course, Building C will also house on the south side of that building, the fire administration building, and they'll have about 5,000 square feet in that building. And that construction cost is going to be about $165,000, a little more than we had anticipated when we first started this. But to accommodate that, we're actually using the library to expand the size of the building, which essentially passes some costs on to fire to build out a gray dark shell instead of a built-out shell like we anticipated. Small amount, but it's going to add to the cost of it. Building E, where the fire department now is housed, they'll be vacating that and moving to C, which gives us about 4,400 square feet of expansion for the police department, who desperately needs to secure the investigation side of house, keep that somewhat private from volunteers and other personnel, and this gives them that opportunity to expand into that. Good news about Franklin Parish University. As you know, they were located in Building C for a very brief time. Planned on moving over the Christmas holidays into their permanent facility in Building A, 14,000 square feet. Great contractor on board. We were able to move that up by a month and allow them to move into their building November 26th. They were very ecstatic about it, and faculty and the students it's a big success with them. It's a great facility over there. If anyone has an opportunity, take a look at that. It turned out top-notch for them. The library, as I said earlier, we've retained Dick Fritchie off of the ongoing consultants list that the city has. We held an introductory meeting December 19th. We actually entered into a contract with Dick Fritchie for $90,000 for that design and construction administration for that facility. We're working currently with the library district in programming their space and running through that. Got some great schematic design going. Again, their space will be approximately 8,000 square feet with 1,650 square feet of programmable space for them to hold share use for the city and them to hold story time. They've got a couple of floor plan options here I'd just like to share with you. In blocking this out, they call this blocking and design. The library district said this is what we need in the space, this is what we anticipate in size, and the architect then goes through and starts manipulating those square footages and coming up with different options for them to do that. This is option E. They're very excited about this option. And option G, which is almost exactly the same thing. It just relocates their front door from where this is the lounge. If you look where the lounge is, that's where the front door is on E, and the door moves south and just kind of relocates some of the front of the house. Everything back of house stays the same. Yes.
Vice Mayor?
Could you tell me what some of these acronyms, PAC, CSD, what is that?
Sure. Basically, that's personal use computers, PAC. Let me pull that up so I can see a little clearer. Thank you. Yeah. The CSD is their customer service desk. That's a different space for that. The sorter is actually, they have a 5-bin sorter. When you come in, you drop a book in, it automatically sorts it to the proper.
Can I suggest something if we put this online? Can you explain that, actually have that online for people that are going to go back on our website and look at this and wonder what that means? Even though I want you to, I didn't mean to interrupt you and continue to explain this, but I think we need to, so many times we do this and nobody knows what we're talking about, so let's make it real clear to the public.
Mayor Lord, thank you. And so, I'm trying to look at the other ones here. Teens, of course, the teen area, new books and media, checkout. And then the multi-use area, that's the area that we spoke of that's got the shared space to be used by the library and the city. We're working on some drawings right now to actually create a facility, restroom facility off that space. So if we have anything, we don't have to enter other facilities in the evenings for the city or them to get out of it.
Is any of this usable for, we have so many neighborhood meetings and, that are in need of a room, and they're going to restaurants. They're having a hard time now getting places. So
Mayor
will we
Lord,
be able to advertise for that? And
absolutely, that was the goal in the space, and that's why we want to get a facility. So it'll be accessible to the front without being accessible to either fire or the library. It'll be secure, so they can go in and use that space for neighborhood meetings, HOAs, things like whatever. Again, it's programmable for all functions like that. It'd be a great space.
Joanne?
Just for the record, I think I kind of like option G.
Well, actually,
not that my voice counts, but just
Vice Mayor Warren, actually, I think we've got 3 or 4 rendition options after this one since then. This is very early, very early in the progress. They all do build off of this, however, and one of them is we're trying to accommodate a little more space for fire and a little less space for the workroom in the back area for them, just because the square footages weren't coming out like they were supposed to when we started. So we're trying to get that back in line.
So you're excited about the word teen? Is that what the one you're?
Oh, I just like the setup.
Oh,
No,
okay,
I just
all
like
right.
the.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
The Police and Fire Administration, again, we've used the professional services on-call list, which has been very, very helpful for these smaller projects like this to retain consultants. And Gensler Architects was the next one on the list. We've retained them. I advise that we're currently negotiating the scope and fee. I actually received their first scope and fee today. We'll be reviewing that and continuing that path. We do expect to have them under contract the week of February the 11th. Right now, we're looking at about $30,000 for design, and we're looking to negotiate that down and take some things out of it. We're looking to have the design completed by the end of March and begin construction on the fire administration in May. Once again, just to give you a brief on the location of the 911 Communication Center, south half of this parking lot. I apologize, it's not the best illustration, but it kind of gives you an idea or circumference of where that is in relationship to the rest of the buildings here. You can see Building B on the north part of the screen. That's actually the building we're in right now. And of course, you saw this groundbreaking, beautiful rendition of what the 911 will look like when we're all finished with that. Just an update on next steps. This month, we're going to finalize, as I said, the negotiations with Gensler Architects for the Police and Fire Administration TIs. Approve the contract for the 911 construction. We have a design contract for that with Arrington Watkins. Council approved back 9 months ago or so a design services CMA risk contract with D.L. Withers, and we've now come to the end of that to where we're negotiating the guaranteed maximum price, or GMP, and that's the contract where we'll be bringing back to you for approval so we can continue on and now get it built. In February, next month, we plan on coming back to you with more library design updates and let you know where we're standing there, because it's a fast-moving project. In March, we'll have a contract for the library construction, if everything goes as planned, for council approval. The new library is scheduled to open again in fall of October of 2013. November, we look to turn the new 911 center over to Chris Nadeau and his team to start dispatching police out of it. That concludes my presentation. Any questions?
Nice presentation. Questions? Bill, you had a question?
Yeah, way back to the beginning. So let's work backward. I didn't want to stop you. You were on a roll.
Yes.
No, go to the end where you were.
Oh,
and then
sorry.
we'll work backward.
Okay.
The update on the library design. Are you looking for council to make that decision? Who's making that decision?
Councilman Stipp, the actual decision on the library design pretty much rests solely in the hands of the library district with the assistance of the Friends of the Library. They know the best use of space. They know the way the space needs to flow. Basically, the update will be keeping you apprised of it. And of course, any comments will be entertained, and we'll making any accommodations that can be done. But again, I think the library district and Friends of the Library are the ones that really are driving that on design.
So how does the public get to say this is what we want in our library? Does anybody know?
They're pretty much a cookie cutter.
I was going to say that, and we've had City Center
Yeah.
talk about the library.
But now I'm talking about
I'm
the
not-
layout of.
I'm not sure.
Is there a public input? I guess is a probably
Not-
better
That's interesting
question.
because I
Not
don't
really.
think I've ever been to one that had the interior layout. I've had where they wanted needs, and I thought we met the needs. Otherwise, it was a computer area, teen area. So I guess I'm just misunderstanding that you think that they need to move a wall, or
No.
no.
I get. Since we say the city, the residents tell us we need a library. We say, yep, we need a library.
Right.
We take action to get a library. So now we have a building and a square footage for a library. but what happens on the inside? And I think,
Well, I
I
do
guess
know
what I'm
that-
asking is, or for the residents that are listening, if you have an interest in that, you can go to somebody fill in the blank to give them your input. And I'm assuming that's the library district, which is essentially the county.
Can I address?
Holly, would you like to address
Yes,
that?
I'm president of Friends of the Library, as you know, and we have been somewhat
It's a citizen committee.
as a citizen committee before I was ever on council. We had to have a Friends of the Library organization in place before the county would bring a library to our city. That was the number one prerequisite. Now, I have been told by the library district that they have specific designs for libraries and that they do all of the placement working with, if it's a current site and they're remodeling, with the library staff that's there in case the flow needs to be changed. But there's no really public meeting saying, where do you want this desk or this children's area? It's already done, and the county has their specific plans. We are somewhat involved because we are raising funds to furnish that library with things that are not budgeted. And that's why we are involved, because we are taking the children's area over, and will be that'll be our biggest fundraiser, that in the marquee out front. But there's not a citizen meeting that I understand from the county, because we asked that and they said they have specific plans, and they're like cookie cutter plans, and they're specific layouts and specific buildings.
But I will add, I was on the Friends of the Library for a while, and we did have some input, and we did talk to them on the things that we had discussed. City Manager, you have a comment?
Well, I just wanted to point out, just for the benefit of the public, is the reason the County Library District is involved in this is they will be operating it. I know council's aware of that, but just for the public that may be watching. So the city does not operate this library. It is our building, and we provide it to them, and they fully operate it. So just to make sure, that's why they get so engaged in the programming side of it.
Okay,
Did that satisfy?
that's what I wanted to make sure everybody understood. I know we all knew that.
All right. Thank you, Bill.
But to quote General Winters, the time for good ideas was years ago. Okay, should we go on to the rest of them?
Joe has a question. Joe?
Couple comments. First one is, I'm glad it's larger, because I know when we were first talking, it was around 6,000 square feet, somewhere in that vicinity. So I'm glad it's larger. I wish it was larger than the 8, but, I'll take what we can get, I guess, at this point. Second thing is I just want to make sure, and I assume that's the multi-use room, is that, there's a lot of programs that libraries do. Whether it's helping people fill out an application, whether it's, helping the kids, children's story, et cetera. And I assume that's what the multi-purpose room is, and I think that's real important, because I know we had that discussion earlier when we weren't sure where the library was going to go, whether to use part of the back end of this room, for those type of special events and training things that the library does. So just to make sure, it's my understanding that multi-use facility could also fit into that mode as well.
Councilman Brazillo, absolutely. That's exactly what this unit is designed for. It's one of the reasons we have a connectivity between the library and this room. Most all of their functions will be during the hours of operation when they're there. Okay. So that way they can actually enter through the library, contact people at the CSD desk, and then access into the room, whether it's story time, whether it's interviewing, giving instructions for interview for job titles, filling out applications, computer research, whatever it is, they have that connectivity. And the same with the fire department. You'll notice on some of the drawings, and I've insisted on working with the fire department, that they have a direct connectivity. And both these will be secured, of course, accesses to where they can use it for training rooms, things like that during local time. And then, of course, in the evenings, it's wide open for other city functions, and during the day for other city functions. Okay. So, yeah, it's a great multi-purpose room, and truly going to live up to its name as multi-purpose.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yes, Bill?
So to piggyback on that, question 2 was, who has control of that then? Since the library district has the control over the library, is this a city part, or is this the library part?
Councilman Stipp, we haven't worked the intricacies of that out yet. The library district is on board. We talked about that quite a bit at one of the meetings. They're on board with doing whatever works the best for this room. They're not opposed if it turns into to the city manager's office and handling the scheduling of it, the fire handling the scheduling of it, just so there's a central entity that handles that scheduling so we don't have scheduling mix-ups. And that's absolutely the one thing we have to do. But they're not opposed to who or don't have an opinion on what side or who should manage that.
Okay. Last question
Yes.
of my several, and you don't have to change slides. The cost figures, construction costs, et cetera, with Cancer Treatment Center moving out, how does this affect the overall budget that we planned for this?
It falls right in line with the library budget, Councilman Stipp. We had $1 million to spend on this. If we'd have went with any of the other options, we probably would have ended up with funds left in that fund, but not enough funds to really do much with, other than maybe add collections or something. And again, as we worked through the options, we looked at budgets and timeframes and things like that. And one of the reasons this was such a good fit was because this did use the appropriate budget for the library in building it out.
I think he maybe wants to know what the
Everything
debt
else.
service is, if it meets the debt service of
Does it meet
purchase of
everything that
building.
we've, on one of the slides, and I can't tell you which number it is, slide 6, you've got square footage for building A, 365, building C, 654, that's the library, building C, 165, building E, 25. How does that fit into what we've budgeted, planned for? Are we within our parameters still? That's one question. Second question is, how does CTCA exiting early, does that have any impact at all?
Let me take that one. Thank you, Mayor, Councilmember Stipp. A couple of things, and Finance Department has been very much involved in this, so absolutely it's within budget. The other part of it is CTCA moving out. We look at it as really a win-win. One is, as Regis pointed out, they'll be moving 30 jobs and now creating 100 jobs and essentially moving their corporate IT out of the Chicago area. The other, it gives us a larger building, a greater public purpose for this building. So we now have a larger library in the multi-purpose space as part of that. So the trade-off is, yes, we lose a tenant. Good news is they'll be expanding to a larger degree. And the good news is we get to use that vacated space for the library. All has been looked at though as far as financially, and it does not hurt the budget.
Sherry?
I know at one point we talked about there was going to be a workforce with Maricopa County, like kiosks. That's going to be somewhere in the library, correct? We still have that?
Yes, Regis, we do.
Oh, thank you, Wally.
Mayor, Councilperson Loretano, yes, we do.
Thank you.
We're working on that right
Yes,
now.
Janet.
Mayor, I wanted to ask one question. With the multi-use room, you had mentioned the HOAs and different organizations would be able to use that room. What about local nonprofits? Would they be able to work with you if they had a meeting pop up or something like that? Would that be included?
It's a meeting room. I'm not sure that they would be subject to anything, I mean, subject to the same as any other organization.
Because
But I see the lawyer going like, it's okay, you know? I'm sure, I think if anything, because the need is so great in Goodyear, it'll be the scheduling is what's going to be difficult, and being fair about it. And so I think that will be one of the issues, and how they'll handle that, I'm not sure at this time. So
well, it's definitely needed, and I think it's just wonderful that
Yeah.
that'll be incorporated. So
it really is. Any other questions? Well, Regis, that was a nice presentation. Thank you
Mayor,
very
Council,
much.
thank you very
All right.
much.
Okay, the next one is item 3.2. That's the review the draft license agreement between the city and CenturyLink. CenturyLink will brief the city council on the services offered to the community. So, Mario Salamando, Executive Management Assistant. And if you'll do the introductions, I would appreciate it.
Bet. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Thank you very much for your time this evening. The item before you tonight is a brief update on the draft license agreement that's before the City Council. The agreement is between the city and CenturyLink, and CenturyLink, formerly Quest, is expanding their service to include cable. So the agreement essentially provides that right to access the city's right-of-ways for installation, maintenance for the cable system. With me tonight is Ken McMahon, who is the
I'm
Vice
sorry,
President.
you're going to have to speak a little bit louder into the microphone because I can't hear you up here.
Ken McMahon, who's the Vice President and General Manager for the Phoenix metro area for CenturyLink, and Michael DeMaria, who is the Director of the State Legislative Affairs for CenturyLink. And they're here tonight to provide a quick overview of the product and the services that they'll be bringing to our community. And following that presentation, staff has a brief presentation on the key points in the draft agreement.
Great.
So if that sounds okay, I'll just turn it
Go
over.
right ahead.
Well, Mayor and council members, thank you very much for your time. I thought the first thing I'd like to do is just talk a little bit about CenturyLink, because obviously with this type of franchise agreement, in my opinion, we're entering a business relationship that allows us to provide additional products and services to your residents, in turn for some revenue for the city. CenturyLink, as many of you know, successfully acquired Quest April 2011. We've completed that transition. We now operate as the third largest telecommunications provider in the United States, and we operate across 37 states. Our focus, I don't believe I work for a telephone company. With today's technology, it's critical that you have broadband services to the residents as well as the businesses within the 37 states that we support. So the investment that we're putting into our markets is about IP, or Internet Protocol Services, that support broadband for the consumer or the household, as well as high-end business class services such as Ethernet, MPLS, and VoIP in the business space. Probably something that's different with CenturyLink than maybe some of the other Fortune 500 companies that are our size is our local presence. So we believe it's extremely important to make decisions about the market that we serve as close to the customer as possible. So historically, a lot of companies make decisions at their corporate headquarters, although the decisions that they're making impact, say, Phoenix, Arizona. And quite frankly, a lot of the decisions about Phoenix or Goodyear were made in Denver, Colorado. And that's no longer the case. My job as the VP General Manager in this market is to argue for the funds with corporate, but those decisions are made here locally. So when we ask about where we should invest in Goodyear, I go right down the street to our technicians that serve the customers in Goodyear, and I ask them where we should be investing in the footprint. So a drastically different model than some of the larger companies. And then we talked about making a significant investment in the community in the state of Arizona. CenturyLink is about growth. Our objective is to grow this company and add the products and services that we provide to our customers. We are not in a harvest mode, and there are some businesses in the telecommunications industry that are doing just that. And that's essentially reducing capital investment in their local footprint at the same rate as revenue loss. Our goal is to increase revenue, in turn adding jobs into the local markets. So as well as a business, whenever I'm looking at making a business partnership, I obviously want to make a business partnership with a company that's financially stable. We are a company that generated $18.35 to $18.4 billion. That's our full year guidance. Obviously, we haven't announced that to the street, so I can't provide the official information. We serve customers ranging from Fortune 500 companies to the most rural markets in the United States. And I've served markets with residents of 32 residents, all the way up to serving the United States of America. From a customer standpoint, we have 13.9 million access lines, 5.8 million broadband customers. When I say broadband, I mean high-speed internet at the home. And then 1.8 million video subscribers. The 1.8 million video subscribers is made up of our relationship with DirecTV, as well as some older relationships that supply Dish Network, and then really what I'm about to talk to you today, which is our Prism video product. That makes up the third component from a video standpoint. We have 210,000 miles of nationwide fiber in the ground. I talked about our commitment to the local market and our focus on broadband or IP services. And then we purchased Savvis late in 2011. For those of you who don't know Savvis, they're regarded by the Gartner Group as one of the top cloud computing companies in the world. We have data centers across the world. We do business internationally, providing hosted services, software as a service, infrastructure as a service to some of the major banks in the United States, as well as other Fortune 500 companies. So what I want to talk to you about Prism, and probably the key takeaway here is Prism is our own video product that will compete directly with Cox, DirecTV, and Dish. But I want to talk a little bit about how we deliver it. Obviously, Cox utilizes kind of an older cable platform. Dish and DirecTV use a satellite that's connected to the home. What we utilize is our broadband network. So what we do is we will go through Goodyear and a portion of Goodyear based off our commitment in the franchise agreement, and we will essentially groom our network. So we will come through and look at the network from our central office all the way to the pedestal that's sitting outside of the home, and we will conduct end-to-end testing on that network. If there's any problems with the network or it can't support the video product that we're bringing to market, then we groom it or rehab it, which means completely replace it. And so we will then provide our video product over our broadband network. And so it's a complete managed service. And what I mean by that is if you purchase the service from us, we commit to you as a customer that we can provide a certain amount of bandwidth. That bandwidth is dedicated to you as a subscriber. That way when you want to watch video, the bandwidth is there to carry that video traffic. What it is not, and sometimes people or individuals get confused if they're not around this every day, is it's not Hulu. And for those of you who know Hulu, it's where I go onto the internet and I do what's called over-the-top video. And that's a best effort video, meaning if you don't have the broadband capability to stream the video, it'll buffer or it'll stop. That is not what we want to bring to Goodyear. What we want to bring to Goodyear is a fully managed IP video product that never buffers. There's no waiting, and I'll talk to you about some of the advantages here in a second. But it's a complete end-to-end managed IP delivery. What we do is we invest in a very large video head-end, and we have two of them. We have one in Columbia, Missouri, and we have one in Denver, Colorado. That's where we pull the big content providers, the ESPNs, the HBOs, the CNNs, directly from their satellite in the sky to our local central office or our national central office. We then carry that over our fiber optic network to Tempe, where we have a local head-in. And that's where we pull all the local content. So Fox, CBS, NBC, all of those are aggregated in a data center that we've owned for some time in Tempe. We then take that over our fiber optic network and we distribute that out to our central offices. So we would distribute that from Tempe to here to Goodyear, and then from there we distribute it over two different technologies. Either one, fiber to the home, and that's where we're taking fiber all the way from the national head-in to the customer's home, and most of the time that's done in new build activity. Or we utilize fiber to the node, which a node is normally a device that serves around 400 homes, and then we leverage the existing copper facilities that are in the ground to provide the service to the house. I'm going to skip this one because it's a little bit redundant. So kind of what's different. So, when you talk to an individual that currently has Cox, Dish, or DirecTV, they want to know, well, why would I switch? Why was Prism a better product? And avoiding price, because I'll tell you that from a price standpoint, very competitive. Quite frankly, I think we've got better price points than both Cox and DirecTV. Dish I view as kind of the T-Mobile of the video industry. They normally come in with a very low price point, but probably not as content rich, but very competitive from a pricing standpoint. Probably our top four benefits is one, we deliver a whole home DVR. And you've probably heard a lot about this. DirecTV is actually attacking the cable companies based off their limitations from a DVR perspective. Our approach is unique to Cox's as well as DirecTV's in the event that, can I ask how many of you have DirecTV or Dish?
DirecTV.
Or Cox. And if you've ordered it recently, the conversation starts like this. Okay, well, how many TVs do you have? 4. And then they'll say, well, do you need DVR, HD, SD, DVR with SD, or just SD? And a lot of confusion. At least I know, and I get confused, and I live it every day.
I don't have DVR.
I don't either.
So what we do is we simplify this.
I don't need 250 stations.
But for your example, if you were to call one of those,
She has an antenna.
if you were to call one of those competitors and say, I want DVR, the response would be, okay, ship back the box that you have, and then pay us, and we'll ship you another one.
I just had
Well, we simplify this. No matter what services you buy from us, the first box that we put in your house is a whole home DVR, HD capable. Whether you buy HD from us, whether you buy DVR services. Then when you, hopefully, Vice Mayor, would like to have DVR services,
As
long as you keep Duck Dynasty off of my TV,
Uh-oh.
I would really not like to watch that anymore.
Well, hopefully I don't show that the channel lineup. But if you wanted it, you would simply call us and say, I want DVR services or I want to add HD, and within 5 minutes, you would have that capability. So we have the capability over our broadband network to upgrade the services versus relying on you shipping equipment back at a charge and then us shipping equipment. Our whole home DVR networks every TV in the house. So if you're sitting in the living room and you're watching the Phoenix Suns game and you're tired, you can hit record, turn the TV off, walk into your bedroom and start watching it where you recorded it in the bedroom. You can record up to, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, so with your technology, that you could make the upgrades from your Tempe office, say, right? It goes right through the system to make those upgrades. So you're not please sit at your home from 8 a.m. till 4 p.m. and someone might show up to get this equipment switched out.
Yeah, really the only beginning piece where we have to ask the customer to stay home for a given period of time is during the initial install. But at that point in time, every other box that we put in the house is HD capable. So our goal is give you the best equipment possible that covers all the new technologies, as well as we can connect any of those set-top boxes and upgrade the software remotely. We don't have to have you ship things back or bring things into a data center. Yes?
Yes, Joe?
Just a quick question. I've got the capabilities to DVR in any room and watch it in any room. It doesn't necessarily have to have been recorded in that specific room.
That's correct.
You're talking about the same thing then?
That's correct.
Okay. So in other words, if you recorded something, say in the living room, but you wanted to watch it in the bedroom, you just pull it up because it sees everything you've...
That's correct.
Okay.
So we network all the TVs to that one box so that they can all communicate to each other. And DirecTV does have something very similar. They're probably the strongest competitor here.
Right.
Cox has limitations to the number of TVs that can be networked. And Dish is taking a little bit, they have a substandard product than what we deliver. Second is if you have Dish and you change the channel, even with cable, you'll see a black screen. There's a lag. So I see some nonverbals that would agree with that. This is what we call blazing find it fast navigation or channel change. Literally, you cannot see a black screen. When you change the channel, it's instantly changed. So if you're a channel surfer, you love it. If you're like me and you can't get past Dora, when my 4-year-old daughter's sitting there, it's not exactly a benefit. Picture-in-picture navigation, what this allows you to do is if you go to the channel guide and you search in the lower left-hand corner of the screen, it will show the different channels. So you can see the channel that you're highlighting in the guide. And then what's really a differentiator is this is the first TV product that truly allows you to integrate the internet experience with the video viewing experience. And so I'll give you an example of this. We've launched an app center. And what it would allow you to do is you could be in the living room, and if you do Facebook, you could actually bring up your Facebook account, and you could be watching the Cardinals game, and you could start to actually post comments about the Cardinals game with your friends. So you actually can start interacting on applications that are only available via the internet while watching TV. Another example of that is I can create an app center at the bottom of my screen. So those of you that watch the news or ESPN, they have a ticker. Essentially what this is it's a customized ticker that you create. I can add my stock quotes that I want to see. I can add the news I want to see. I can add the weather I want to see. And while I'm watching TV, I don't have to change the channel to go to the weather channel. I can open up my app and I can see all the weather come across and scroll across the screen while I'm watching the game.
This is guy heaven, isn't it?
You can tell I'm very passionate about it.
Does this come with a 12-year-old to operate it?
You know, it's very intuitive, and I think you'll see that what's different about this is because the technology is so new, you do feel like you're operating more of a computer or like an Apple-type product versus what we're used to in a DirecTV, Dish, or a Cox environment. Some of the other, I talked about the interactive dashboard. This is where you can create your own customized ticker. In the upper right-hand corner is something we call personal media sharing. Many a times we come home from a vacation, we download all of our pictures onto our computer, and then the next thing you know, you got 8 people hovered around a 19-inch computer monitor trying to see vacation pictures. This allows you to connect your Prism product with your personal computer and access all your videos, your music, and your pictures that reside on your computer on your TV. We also have Last 5, which is one button that allows you to identify the last 5 channels that you viewed And then, of course, being a telecommunications company, we integrate caller ID on the TV so that you don't actually have to get up off the couch to answer the phone, or choose if you want to answer the phone.
And I assume parental controls are just.
Most definitely. You actually can go through, it's pretty robust. You can go through and actually choose, whether or not you want our content to come up. You can deselect channels. You can lock channels where individuals have to have a code to access it, et cetera. And then I won't go through this in great detail, but I wanted to point out a couple of other key features. One is we provide similar access as other providers to hundreds of movies and shows on demand. We provide real-time content. So if you go out to our just-in VOD library or video on demand library, you will see videos that just came out on DVD yesterday. And then we also provide a lot of kids free programming as well as karaoke. So I think there's over 60 karaoke channels, and of course you've got the background and the words so that you can have a nice party time with your friends and embarrass yourselves, as I would do. And then you can see on the bottom just some of the content that we have. So, we believe that bringing this product into Goodyear provides definitely some advantages for not only the residents, but as well as the city. And so, first is we believe that we want to bring this product because, one, we make additional investment in the market. So when we have a franchise agreement, we do come in here, we spend a significant amount of money on our network to ensure it can provide a high quality of service, which not only provides the video product, but also enhances that household's internet experience. Goodyear revenues from cable franchise fees will increase. So today, if a customer has Dish or DirecTV, you're not receiving cable franchise fees for that service. And so obviously, as we provide more Prism-based customers in the Goodyear area, that's a benefit to the city. Consumers will benefit. Per the FCC, cable prices decreased substantially, almost by 10%. Well, they did by 10% in 2008 when a second facility-based cable operator enters in the market. So the product that we're talking today is very similar to AT&T's Uverse product. Some of you may have heard of that, or Verizon's Fios product. And then increase in employment. Obviously, when we grow services that we provide as a company, we need more employees to support that product. Today, we're doing just that. We have launched this product in certain areas of the Phoenix metro area, and we are aggressively adding employees right now. And I would love to do it here in Goodyear as well.
Joe?
Yes.
Just to, I guess, follow up on what you're saying. I assume you're going to be digging and laying a lot of cable or laying the fiber optics. Is that a correct assumption?
That is correct.
Okay.
So we will be doing some construction and engineering work when we find plant or network facilities that cannot support the video product.
Okay. Any idea from a job standpoint how many jobs you're looking at probably in the Goodyear area as a result of this endeavor?
The job ad will come once we start selling the services. Today, a lot of that construction and engineering we're doing with in-house resources that reside today.
Okay.
But if I was to guess, you'd probably be looking, and please don't hold me to this, we don't have the franchise agreement yet, but you're looking at probably 20 employees that would be doing work in this area.
Okay.
Bill?
I've heard you use either the term most areas, some of Goodyear. I know when we first moved here in 2001, there were some services that were not available to us yet. And that was extremely frustrating. So for the existing population that we already have, if we're going to enter into this agreement, I want to make sure, at least here with some specificity, what does some of Goodyear's, what does that look like to you?
Sure.
It's easy to do the people that aren't, the houses that aren't here yet, but I'm talking about the folks that are here today.
Well, today, 100% of our plan is existing households.
Okay.
Not net new growth. And I can let you speak to the commitments that we've made in the franchise agreement if you would like, but I can tell you we'll exceed those. We can get to that if you don't mind during the city's presentation.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
But your plan is every household today is going to have this service theoretically available.
Not every household, but we've made some capable commitments
Okay.
within the franchise agreement
Okay. Then
that
I do wanna
really
hear
are
that.
advantageous for us to meet and exceed because it allows for auto renewal of the contract.
Sure.
But it will not be just net new build. All of our plans right now are existing households,
But not all of them.
not all of it. No.
Okay, that's what I want to hear
Yep.
about then.
Yep.
Okay.
Jerry?
I'm sorry, could you talk a little bit more about the services for the business customer? You know, how this, because that's one thing we're looking at technology for, to bring more businesses in. If you could address that a little bit.
Yeah, for the most part, the build and the investment that we will be making is going to be concentrated at households, so residential for this specific product. However, there are some benefits because obviously when I referenced a node that serves, say, 400 to 450 homes, a majority of the time there are businesses within that node. So when we go in through and groom, then what that means to that business is we can provide higher internet speeds. When you talk about bringing more bandwidth into a market that would entice a customer to move to Goodyear, what I would ask is that you engage myself and my team when we have those so that we can build the infrastructure that would allow a customer to have high cap services when they move in. Yeah.
My question is,
Can I follow up on that real quick, just so you know?
Can you put the mic? Thanks.
Mr. Paxton and I talk quite often, and one of the things that I provided him a couple of years ago is we went over kind of where's fiber, where's opportunity to grow, so he knows exactly, you know, we can build to suit any business, but he wanted to know kind of the areas where growth was happening. And you know, one of the advantages being out here, and you have a power plant obviously west of here, you have to have quite a bit of fiber to be able to service that. So I don't know that that's a prohibitive issue for business growth here. And Harry and I have talked quite often about making sure that that's there. And what Harry does is if he has a new business, he calls us, and within 24 hours we have, okay, here's what it'll take to get there, here's the cost. If it's already there, we'll let him know. So we already have that relationship on the business side today.
Molly?
I have a couple questions, and I'm going to address this partly to my city manager. We've been laying fiber optic cable for months and months and months and months. Are they able to use any of that, or are they going to come and lay new cable? Or am I putting you on the spot? I'm sorry.
Well, I would defer that answer over to them because it can get pretty complicated as far as where the fiber is, how it's being utilized. But if you could best answer that, thank you.
So our current strategy is to utilize the network that we already have in place. So with the initial builds, we won't be laying new fiber into the ground. A lot of it's already there. What we're going to do is groom it and rehab it to ensure it can provide the services that we want to add to it. Now, for a new build, so anytime we have what we refer to as a greenfield opportunity, it's fiber all the way to the home, and therefore we would be laying new fiber. To date, we don't. So this is city-owned fiber that you're referencing?
Correct. If I can also point out, too, my knowledge of it, and I can always look over at engineering, but the fiber that we're installing is used primarily for our traffic signals and to really make sure that they're all linked and in sync. That's our primary use. David, is there anything else I need to add to that?
So we're not going to go in and tear up those streets that we just laid for him to lay his fiber optic cables. All right, and my last question is your company involved at all in the broadband movement to get broadband to the rural counties in America?
Most definitely. I'm actually on the board at the state of Arizona on the broadband committee to try to think of different ways to deliver broadband to more rural communities, because obviously they have just as great of a need as we do here in the metro area.
I attended a presentation of that in Washington, D.C., and it was, were you there?
I was not.
Oh, I was going to say it was very interesting because we have an area that I call very rural for Goodyear. It's called Mobile, and I'm hoping that they might be able to get internet out there somehow.
Yeah, just so what we're talking about is the Universal Service Fund rules have changed, or are changing. Would you have on a phone bill typically, you'll see a charge there that says USF fund, and that went to fund rural phone across a lot of western states and a lot of rural America. That's being transitioned to a broadband fund. It's something that's already been collected. There's about $1 trillion, I think, sitting in that fund right now that doesn't get used. That's going to transition over, and CenturyLink's one of the companies that's working with the federal government to design new rules on how you get those dollars and how you can, areas that need broadband. We're typically looking at areas that are not served first, and then those areas that would be considerably underserved when they change the definition of what speed means underserved here in the future. So I'm hoping that this is going to be the year that that's complete. We've been working on this now for about 18 months at this point.
Thank you. Jennifer?
Thank you for presenting tonight. I'm fascinated by this. I was in TV news for about 20 years, and when I left the industry, the talk then was, wouldn't it be great if we could do a live shot over a cell phone? So it just amazes me at how quickly everything evolves. My one question is, coming into Goodyear, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard you say there, for being able to come into a majority of Goodyear, are there areas of Goodyear that would not have access to this?
There would be certain households that are not eligible for the service. And our approach in communicating that is we send letters to the households that are eligible and information about the product. And then subsequently to that, if a customer was to call in and say, I would like to have this service, however, we didn't have the capability, we track all that. And then what's nice is we can use that information to justify additional build out.
Right. Do you have any specific areas right now where you know that you will not be able to serve?
We have not gone, well, we do have an idea. We haven't gone through and done the complete characterization of the plant and made that investment until we have a franchise agreement.
Okay. Thank you.
And then I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
The last point I wanted to make is although this is a new product to Goodyear, this is not a new product to CenturyLink. We have launched this in 8 markets. We have over 1.2 million capable households. So we're very experienced in this. So it's not like our first step into this product.
Any other questions for him? And now, Mario, are you going into?
Yeah.
First of all, let me thank you for your presentation. It was certainly explicit, and it really helped me a great deal. And it's all about choices, and so not to look at all the other companies and say they haven't furnished good service. I think we all have different people we're working with, but we do always want to advance our options. And I think especially for business, this is one that will do that. So I thank you very much for all the work and the presentation. And so I'll let Mario take it over from there.
Thank you, Mayor. As I mentioned, I just wanted to hit some of the key points in the proposed agreement that's before the City Council. A little background on this agreement. CenturyLink approached the city in October of 2011. They were introducing PRISM, which you just heard about. They talked about their direct benefits with regard to direct competition. An internal team worked on the agreement. Representatives from legal, development services, communications, information technology, engineering, city manager's office. And the agreement's based on several recent agreements that were adopted in other communities. CenturyLink mentioned that they have 12 cable licenses in Arizona communities serving Phoenix and Scottsdale, and this agreement takes the provisions that were recently adopted in some of those other communities. The controlling authority behind the franchise agreement it's governed by Chapter 17 of the Code, and that grants the authority to approve licenses for install and operation and maintenance of cable systems in the public right-of-way. It's a non-exclusive agreement. The city has an agreement with Cox Communications as well, which is coming up for renewal in 2013 as well. The agreement is also tied to other state Arizona revised statutes as well as federal acts that have helped frame this agreement. The term of the agreement is a 6-year term. It does include renewal options based on the market share. And Councilmember Stipp, just on your point, because CenturyLink is deploying new technology in the community and they are currently not serving Goodyear with cable services, the agreement links the build-out schedule with the license term. And you can kind of see it on this chart. It's just an example. But the renewal is based on the number of dwelling units, and that's tied to the percent of the market share. So the original agreement is it's a 6-year term, and that runs through 2019. And the first opportunity to renew or extend the agreement happens in 2016, and that is if basically service is available to 20% of the households, then they would be eligible to extend the agreement an additional 2 years. The second opportunity to renew the agreement is in 2019, and if at that point in time they're serving 50% are providing service to at least 50% of the market, then they have the ability to extend that out to 2023. If those performance marks aren't hit, then it's a 6-year agreement which runs through 2019. Does that?
Questions from anybody? Joe?
Again, just clarification, if the target's not met in 2016, what happens?
It's in 2016. There's a 6-month window to take a look at the market share. You know, what's the service level that's being provided? If they're not providing that service to 20% of the market, then there isn't an option to renew or extend the agreement an additional 2 years.
What happens with the people who already have the service? What I don't understand is you've got an agreement that you're not going to extend, but I assume that your agreement comes up with a percentage of the gross receipts. So if they don't meet the 20%, they can't extend, but I assume, and maybe that's the wrong word, that you're still getting the percentage of the receipts or not. You tell me.
Well, the agreement's in effect into 2019.
Okay.
And, you know, that's 5% of the gross that is associated with that agreement. So they have the ability to provide service through 2019. And that renewal component hits in 16. So if they fall short, then it's an agreement that just runs through 2019. But I'm going to look at the attorney. Is that correct?
No, that's correct. I think your question is what if it's not renewed?
Correct.
Then the agreement ends, and they'll no longer be able to use our right-of-ways to provide the service. The agreement was structured this way to give them an incentive to get in and get their market penetration, and that's why they put the incentives in there to hit these thresholds. So the concern was they don't get in and serve the entire community.
Well, maybe let me. Yeah, I understand that. My question is if they don't meet the target and the extension doesn't happen past 2019, they still have customers. So the service. So I assume you're still getting 5% of those customers. It's not going to be able to expand the customers because they won't be able to use it right away.
No, I would take the position that the agreement ends in 2019. They no longer can provide the service because they can't use our right away. But hopefully we never get to that point, and I'm sure we'd certainly have negotiations.
Well, that's why I'm asking the
So I
question.
guess what he's asking, so the client has to find somebody else to
They would have
service
to
the
find an alternative
services.
provider, but
Okay.
certainly I assume there would be a lot of conversations between us and CenturyLink, and obviously the city council prior to that happening. But that's the worst case doomsday scenario.
No, I just want to see what the alternatives are in here and how this is all playing out. I appreciate the incentives to grow because, again, you know, the dollar's back on their back to make sure that you meet those targets, and that I like in the agreement. But again, I wanted the what-ifs to understand how that works. So again, the incentives are real important because without those incentives, that stuff could slide. With the incentives, I suspect they're going to try their best to make sure they meet those targets.
And that was the mutual discussion.
Okay.
between the two
Sure.
parties.
And
I just want to make sure I understood how that worked.
if I could just make one point of clarification. When we talk about market share, that's the percentages of households that are eligible for the service. We obviously don't have commitments within a franchise agreement about our actual market penetration. So that doesn't mean all those households are receiving the service, but our network is capable of providing that.
Okay.
Okay, now that adds a second question to my two then. My original question was more to what Councilmember Barber was talking about, is serving our community. So who's in and who's out? I'm very interested, maybe not specifically, but maybe with a little bit higher level of detail when this agreement comes forward to us, to try to figure out it's going to be no one south of here, it's going to be no one north of there, it's going to be no one west of here. Something like that would be very helpful for that discussion.
But you know, you have to realize there are services. They're just not this type of service that furnishes
Correct,
some of the
but
other people.
I'd like
Okay,
to
just
know
wanna-
that
yeah,
going
okay.
into it. So now, based on what Councilmember Pizzillo just asked, and your reply to that was, this slide shows dwelling units. That's not really what we're talking about. You're talking about, today, 2013, there's 31,095 dwelling units, but that service may only be available to, let's say, 10,000 of them. Is that correct? So if it's only available to 10,000 of them, what you're talking about is serving a percentage of that 10,000, not of the 31,000. Is that correct? Is that how you answered that question?
It's what's capable of, what houses are capable of receiving the service. It's not how much I take from Cox or how much I take from DirecTV.
Right.
It's how much we build out so the customer has the availability of the service.
Yeah, so by 2019, 50%. So if 41,000, let's just say 42,000 to keep the math simple, 42,000 dwelling units, but it's only available to 20,000 of them, then you have to be serving 10,000 of those customers. Is that how I'm reading that?
I think we're really close.
Okay.
I think
As
of
long
it,
as we're close.
I think of it in three numbers, and I'm going to make it real easy from a math perspective. There's 40,000 dwelling units. This document would say we need to get to 50% of those households, or 20,000, are capable of the product. So that means I'm responsible for going out and grooming the network and making the network for 50% of the households, or 20,000 dwelling units, capable so that they have a choice to purchase Prism. Now, it could be only 5% of them actually choose to purchase the product, but that's obviously where it's my responsibility to advertise the product appropriately so that they're aware of that choice.
Okay, so then by 2023, your goal is only 60%. Is that how I'm reading that?
Yeah, I believe our two commitments in the franchise agreement are the 20 and the 50. I'm not sure what data points drawing the future expansion.
All right, good enough. Thanks.
My question is to Mario. Mario, how long is the Cox contract? Is it 6 years as well?
It's 15 years.
Okay.
Because they're an established service.
Okay.
And so there was a shorter term.
Okay, so Century's coming in for 6 with a renewal for an additional 6?
Well,
or do we know that, or should we wait till your presentation?
no, it's a 6-year term.
Okay.
And then there's an option to renew for 2 years to get it to 8, and then
Right.
2 more years. There's one last option for 2 additional years
Okay.
for a 10-year agreement.
Okay, got it.
Potentially up to 10 years.
Okay, thank you.
Joanne?
Well, I just would like to say I appreciate you bringing this to us. I think that competition is healthy, and I think that the goal truly of this council is that we want Goodyear to have the infrastructure that our businesses need, that our households need, and take us into the next centuries. And that's, the point, I think, of the questions of, what households are not going to be, receiving this. That's I think, the biggest concern. Back to my statement, I personally don't want 250 TV channels, but, that's just me personally. So I do appreciate this, and I think going forward, this is what the city is grasping. We are looking for these alternatives for our homes and for our citizens. So thank you very much.
Jennifer?
Mayor, did we have a moment just to discuss this next slide about the proposed agreement with the
Yes,
4
we're
channels?
fine. I checked with the city clerk. We're fine until around 6:20.
Okay.
So we've advertised this, so you go ahead and ask your question.
Go ahead and present, and then I'll probably ask you
Okay.
a couple questions.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. A couple of other points in the proposed agreement. The agreement provides at no charge to the city up to 4 channels for local government access use. Provides 1 channel also for police and fire. That signal is restricted, only available and accessed with a special converter, so it's potentially could be used for training within public safety that only those folks can see. It also provides the ability for an emergency alerts, either audio or video text calls, to provide information with regard to public safety, health, and welfare.
Jen?
So, Mayor, I wanted to ask, and maybe this is a question for the city manager, those channels, would they be managed by our communications department?
At this point, it would be, that it's anticipated that we'll be part of the communications group, absolutely.
And would this open us up to be able to maybe even start our own city channel where we have our own programs and that kind of a thing? Or
Our own studio, yes, like the other cities have. I could see where your question was going.
Certainly, and that's something we've been looking at for the last several years. budget willing. First, we have to have the technology capability, and then also the budget to be able to manage that, to operate that. We've also been looking at opportunities outside the city to partner with others. So several things, we're looking at that. I do not know when we will be at that point, mostly tied to budget.
Okay, thank you.
Wayne?
Kind of a follow-up on that. Brian, this would be exciting. Obviously, we haven't had channels before, so that's something new for us, and I understand the budget and all that, going forward. I guess just my hesitation has always been not putting all your eggs in one basket, and so not relying solely on one cable or one type of, I know we've always had those discussions in the past with, we need to have the radios, we need to have satellite, we need, just making sure that we, continue to follow that conservative approach of, not
to
putting
continue with the
everything.
providers for a number of providers? Is
A
that what
number
you're
of different
indicating?
channels of, okay.
It's available right now in the Cox agreement, we just haven't made use of it. So
Okay.
the channel 11 you're seeing Phoenix, I think that's the channels reserved for our use if we
I
chose
see.
to use it.
But just, like I say, just across the spectrum of different types of capabilities, that we're not just relying solely on one type, but that we have, if one goes down, okay, now we have the option of this backup or whatever. Thank you.
Welcome. Any other questions?
On-demand, there's an on-demand component here too, right?
Yes.
Mario, are you still continuing?
Yeah.
Sorry, we're editing in the middle of the
That's all right,
presentation.
okay.
We're just talking about.
You can
as a-
edit,
As
that's
a
all right.
component of this, and I'm not the technical expert, we also discussed there's an on-demand component that'll
Mm-hmm.
be available for city use as well. So it won't just be you see what's on, but they'll eventually, when we get there.
Could you say that into the microphone for
I'm
the
sorry.
people that are outside?
One of the things we discussed is there's also a component for on-demand programming for the city. So that's a new technological advance, and I'm getting way beyond my technology knowledge. So, but that's one thing that's contained in the agreement as well.
Great. Mario?
The agreement provides free basic cable to city offices and also public schools if the location is within 4,000 feet of the cable terminal. And there's also provision in there, like it was mentioned earlier before, a lot of this takes advantage of the existing network that's already in the ground. However, where there is a need to install and maintain and get access to the city right away, and then there are provisions in there with regard to restoration of property. The property has to be restored within 7 business days. There is a performance bond and letter of credit also that address liquidated damages to ensure that requirements are met. And there's also a joint trench provision in there, and that is it's an opportunity as they're doing work in the right of way for the city to take advantage of the excavation that's currently underway and throw some conduit in there, like the city manager was saying, to help get us closer to the goals that we have related to the signals and the fiber network that we're working on as well. We actually took advantage of that under the Cox agreement a couple of months ago. Engineering caught that in the plan review process and took advantage of some joint trench opportunities. So there's another opportunity available within this agreement as well. Lastly, the fiscal impact. It's at 5% of total gross revenues, and that's a federal and state law that dictates that 5%. And we're looking at approximately $10,000 for the first full year of operations based on 10% market penetration rate. So just a presentation tonight. It's on the calendar for the 11th of February for council action, and be happy to open it up for any questions.
Great. Any other questions from council? I think they asked just about everything they could ask tonight. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming for this presentation. And I'm going to adjourn this meeting if there's no other questions, and we will, I think, take the 5-minute break. City Clerk, how about